Welcome back to another edition of the Sooner Pocket Podcast. Sam Knight here with my brother Chris Knight. Oklahoma coming off of a very, very bad loss to Texas, 34-3. That puts the total score now of Brent Venables' two losses to Texas at 83-3 in his tenure. And even accounting for last year, Texas has outscored us 113-37, if I have my math right. That's not good. Not good at all, Chris.
Nope. And it was the same story as it has been, as it was, I should say, in the Tennessee game. Our defense gave us every opportunity they could for us to go down and win. Granted, it got to a point where they were gassed. There was sloppy tackling, missed assignments, and all that. But in the first quarter, we did not allow a first down. Just think about this. The first time the other team has touched the ball each game this year, except for one game. The first time they've touched the ball has been a 3-and-out. That one exception was the Houston game, where the first time they touched the ball was a muffed punt. But our defense is just putting us in these great situations. 6 games in a row now, we've forced the offense to get off the field. We were winning at the end of the first quarter. We were winning 3-0. I was sitting there thinking, I expected our defense to keep us in it for a while, but I didn't expect us to be winning. They gave me hope, which is a terrible, cruel thing for them to do. And I was just,
Yeah, never give Chris hope. For any of you that
and
don't know, just never give it.
and it's just at some point you got to start asking questions about that offense. I mean, we've been doing it all season, wondering what's going on with the offensive coordinator. And something that we talked about in the Soonerpocket.com blog post, the recap of the game, was that as much as we all hate Lincoln Riley, you could give Lincoln Riley a team of 2-star wide receivers and they'd get open. You have a somewhat okay quarterback. You could still have a good. I mean, look at Miller Moss. Miller Moss is by no definition a great quarterback, but because of Lincoln Riley's schemes, he's constantly finding these open receivers, and that's all you need to do. You just need to scheme these guys open. Our wide receivers have no idea how to get open right now because of the scheme that Seth Luttrell runs, and I don't understand why he is still the play caller. Like, is the play calling from Emmett Jones and DeMarco Murray just so bad compared to Seth Luttrell, which that was already a pretty low bar? But regardless, there needs to be changes made offensively because I can't see us lose again like that to Texas.
Yeah, I don't hold out a lot of hope that we're going to see many changes offensively during the season.
Not this year,
Um,
no.
I definitely hope for it, but it's going to be an off-season deal. If things continue as they are, OU in all likelihood will not finish bowl eligible. We will have an offensive house cleaning, and Brent Venables will have a lot of questions, and he will have a very, very hot seat going into next year. First year in the SEC, potentially finishing non-bowl eligible. I see a win against Maine. I'm truly not sure where the rest of these wins come from. Um, Looking at the rest of the college football landscape leads me into this a little bit. LSU is one of those games we've got to play. Um, we saw 3 top 10 teams go to overtime last week. Penn State, number 4 against USC. Penn State pulled out the victory 33-30. Number 8, Tennessee hosting Florida. Tennessee pulled that one out in overtime. And number 13, LSU against number 9, Ole Miss. They went to overtime. LSU pulled out the gritty win there against Ole Miss. So, got a lot of good teams. Looking to this week against South Carolina to focus on the current opponent. South Carolina and OU really are pretty evenly matched teams. Funny as that is to say. I'm sure at the front of the year, that wasn't something we thought we'd hear. Um, Sooners 4-2, South Carolina 3-3. The Sooners are a lucky, opportunistic pick six away from being 3-3 as well, also being 1-2 in conference play. Um, so it's you know I don't know. It doesn't bode well. Doesn't bode well for us because these Auburn, I would argue, is not as good as OU. I think they've got some players that are better than OU, um, but I don't think Auburn's better. And they almost beat us. Somehow we held our weight against Tennessee. Couldn't pull out of that one. But a team that's on our level, um, this has the potential to be a very, very ugly, ugly game. Oklahoma's defense right now ranking right near the middle of the SEC. Um, in total defense, South Carolina's right in there as well. And OU and South Carolina, both bottom four in the SEC in total offense. Not sure what I'm looking for out of this one, Chris. I think Danny Stutzman on the defensive side and possibly Deion Burks on the offensive side. Sounds like he's going to be back based on some of the early week injury rumblings on Twitter. But I think those two are going to be your playmakers, defense and offense. I'm curious to hear your thoughts, what we're looking for out of this game.
Yeah, it would certainly be nice to get Deion Burks back tonight. Here in about an hour from when we're recording this is when the first injury report will come out. So I'm interested to see how that pans out. And Oklahoma is kind of, I know you said that we're statistically in the middle of the pack defensively, but also that it's kind of a misleading statistic because I saw earlier, I can't remember which one of the beat writers sent it out, but they showed the top 10 defenses in just stops in general, and OU was number 11 in the country there. I'm looking at PFF right now. In overall defensive grade, they have us at 10th in all of college football. And I mean, it makes sense. We're we're having these great games defensively, and something you said when it comes to the wins the rest of the year, and especially this weekend against South Carolina, our defense, I truly believe that every game of the season, our defense will put us in a position to win the game. I'm not saying they will win us the game. I'm not saying that we will win those games at all, but our defense will put us in a position to where we could win the game. Against Tennessee, we had every opportunity to. We were two piss poor plays away from having two touchdowns in that game. And they were both the fumbles from Jackson Arnold. I mean, first and goal, that's the first play of the drive. You kind of expect a touchdown there. That alone would have made it 25-23. You get the other fumble, put a touchdown in on that drive, where we had it inside scoring position already. Let's say we just got a field goal. That's 26-25. OU wins. You look at these drives we had against Texas, where we started almost every drive of the first quarter in Texas territory. You got to be able to score there. We're forcing turnovers like nobody's business. We get after the quarterback among the best in the country. We stop people in the backfield. We make teams trying to run against us a nightmare. But the offense just doesn't know what to do. So if the offense can show any semblance of life, if we can get some of our playmakers back, I truly believe that we can eke out a couple more wins. Like Deion Burks, you said he might be back this weekend, but like looking ahead to Ole Miss, we've seen that when they go up against good defenses, they are slow. They don't know what to do for a lot of the game. We saw it against Kentucky. We saw it against LSU. We saw it multiple times this season where Ole Miss is kind of slow against these better defenses. If we have, let's say, Deion Burks and Jalil Farouk back for that game, we have a very good chance of just doing enough offensively to win because we know our defense is going to put us in these positions. But looking ahead to this game specifically, the main guy that I'm going to be looking at on the defense is going to be Trace Ford. He's since we started conference play, he has just had a great effect in pass rush. He's been one of our most efficient pass rushers all season long. Uh, you'd be hard pressed to find anyone on our team who's having more success. Now he's not getting to the quarterback, but he's not tackling the quarterback, but he's getting to them. He's forcing that pressure. He's making them run around. He's making them run for their lives. He's forcing the offensive line to put extra attention on him. And South Carolina, while they have a really good running back, who I'll talk about here in a minute, I don't think they have the offensive line to stop our pass rush. And I think that's going to be led by Trace Ford. So he's who I'm looking for to make an impact defensively. When it comes to offense, I'm looking at Taylor Tatum. Yeah, he had that fumble against Texas, but Brent Venables said that he's not going to let that fumble make an impact on where Taylor Tatum is on the depth chart. Right now, Taylor Tatum, among running backs who have at least 10 carries on the year, he's for OU, he's averaging 6.7 yards per carry, which is more than double any other running back on the team. And he very clearly has explosive ability. I just think he just needs to get a few more shots. He needs to get a few more opportunities, and he's primed for a breakout game. So for Oklahoma, I've got Taylor Tatum on the offense, Trace Ford on the defense.
Yeah, they'll be they'll be impact players, that's for sure. Um, I'm really interested just to see what the offense comes out with this week, because last week was really rock bottom. It truly can't get worse than that. Um, I I worry a little bit about the defense. Um, they've been good up until last week. I feel like last week was really their breaking point. There's only so much coaching you can do, I think, when it comes to effort and belief in your team. There's a lot that coaching can do, and that's got to be extremely, extremely frustrating as a defense to be going out there. You get the turnover, you get some stops, you're getting some pressure on Quinn Ewers. You give the offense every chance, like you said, north of the 50, to put up points, to give your defense some insurance, give your defense something to work with. And the offense goes out there and puts out the product that it did. It's terrible. Um, I don't know right now that the belief is there, um, that the defense believes in the offense. So I'm sure that's creating an interesting locker room dynamic. It seems like it would, but overall, this game, I'm looking for our offense to show up and be able to execute something. I feel like if we can get two good drives to show that we can do it, get down there, punch it in the end zone, we will stand a chance at putting together maybe a third and fourth drive. And that hopefully gives our defense a bit of energy, gives them a boost, gives them something to build off of. I don't know. I'm looking maybe this week at a 17-13 win for Oklahoma. Could be really interesting. Again, South Carolina's offense isn't great either. They're a bit better than ours. I think they're fourth from the bottom. We're the very bottom. So the defense has a good shot at holding them. Just going to be whether or not the offense can capitalize on those opportunities. My guess is if our offense goes out, puts up 3 or 4 blank possessions, that defense is going to start cracking again a little bit, because all that is momentum for South Carolina. Every time that happens, that's just momentum. So we'll see. But 17-13 Oklahoma. That's my official prediction.
Yeah, and I could see that happening. I do think we're going to win this one. I also think it will be a low scoring, close affair. Because you've got guys like Rocket Sanders, Raheem Sanders for South Carolina, who is a really good running back. You've got guys like TJ Sanders on their defense, who they're TJ Sanders, he's getting to the quarterback a lot. He doesn't miss very many tackles. He's a really good defender, and it's going to make both sides of the ball work extra hard. I think the key to us winning this game, we need touchdowns on 2 drives specifically, more than any other drive. We need a touchdown on our first drive of the game, and we need a touchdown on our first drive of the fourth quarter, whatever that looks like. We get a touchdown the first drive of the game. We almost know with certainty that we're going to get South Carolina's offense off the field when they first get the ball. It's most likely going to be a 3-and-out. All the evidence from this season so far points to it. Like the most likely scenario is a 3-and-out. If we can force a 3-and-out or force a turnover, and then we go down and score, that's a huge momentum burst to Oklahoma. Now, Shane Beamer, his squad doesn't give up easily. We saw that against Alabama. They came roaring back and they really gave Alabama a lot of difficulty. Uh, when it comes to the fourth quarter, we know that South Carolina is still going to be fighting, and that's when we're going to need to get that insurance touchdown in the fourth quarter at the start. That way, any hope South Carolina has, we can kill it. If we can do that, I think we will win no problem. I see the final score of this game. I see the final score of this game being 20-10. I think we'll get two touchdowns, two field goals. We'll probably allow a touchdown and a field goal, but I think Oklahoma can win this one, and if we can win this one, we can pretty much punch a bowl game ticket because we're going to beat Maine. If we can't beat Maine, then I'm sorry, Brent Venables needs to go. But we're going to beat Maine, and so as long as we can win this one, we'll be all right.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. Looking across the rest of the college football slate, here in 2 nights on Friday, number 2 Oregon travels to Purdue. It'll be an interesting Big Ten matchup. I know Purdue is always kind of a trap game for the traditional Big Ten teams. They did fire their offensive coordinator near the start of the year, so we'll see how that goes. Have a chance to see Florida State drop to, I believe, 1-5, if I'm not mistaken, when they play Duke on Friday. Oklahoma State taking on BYU. Looking ahead to Saturday, there's not a whole lot of blockbuster games. Really, two main ones that we're looking at: Alabama and Tennessee, 7-11. They're playing at Neyland, and then we've got Texas and Georgia facing off. Those two games, I think Tennessee is actually going to beat Alabama in a very close game. I don't know if the Georgia game like broke Alabama or what it was, but that team has not been the same since that win over Georgia. So the way they played against South Carolina and the loss to Vandy, I think Tennessee's got this one. Strange as that is to say, Tennessee, I think, has it, and Alabama's only a 3-point favorite in this one. So we'll see how that goes. And much as I'm going to hate to see it, I'm going to just hope that Oklahoma State gets dog walked by BYU on Friday, so I can see one of our traditional rivals lose, because Texas is going to handle Georgia, I think. It's an interesting Georgia team they've got this year. They have very little to show offensively against quality opponents. So I'm going there with the Longhorns. What's the spread in that game?
I don't know.
Let's
I will
see.
find that out, but I'm going
Hang
to
on one
disagree with
second.
you.
Hang on one second. Let's
56 and a
see.
half. Texas is a 5-point favorite.
I think Texas is going to cover 5, and they may cover 10 at most, but I think Texas is going to win that one pretty good.
I I disagree with you because Georgia, they showed against Alabama, they've showed a lot this year that they are opportunistic to say the least. Whenever a team just begins to struggle, that's when they come in and do their best work. I mean, Bryant Denny is one very difficult place to play. That is a very difficult place to play. And they were down 28-0. They ended up losing that game because of the alien known as Ryan Williams, but they came back. They made that a ball game. They struggled against Kentucky, but it looks like everybody pretty much is struggling against Kentucky. Kentucky has a really solid defense. Georgia, I think they've hit a couple hiccups, but they will do what Oklahoma couldn't do. If Texas comes out looking offensively in the first quarter like they did against Oklahoma, I think Georgia's winning at least 14-0, maybe 17-0 by the end of the first quarter. Texas, they won't give up easily either. I see Georgia just barely covering the spread here. I think they win by a field goal. I just I think Georgia is the most opportunistic team in college football, and they have their off days just like everyone else. But don't forget, look at the 2022 season. Oklahoma beat Kent State 33-3. It was a struggle for a little bit, but we beat Kent State 33-3. That same Kent State team faced Georgia that year, and I think the final score was like 38-25 Georgia. Like just looking at it like that, you'd think, oh, OU must be the better team. Well, guess who got massacred by TCU that year, and guess who massacred TCU that year? Uh, that same season, 2022, Georgia's going up against Missouri at Missouri. This was before Missouri got good. This was when Missouri was still kind of bottom of the pack, SEC, and Missouri gave Georgia 60 minutes of hell. Georgia, they kind of have these off weeks every now and then, but then they face CJ Stroud and Ohio State in the college football playoff, who had one of the best games they could ever hope for offensively, and they still beat them. You look at some games last year where, yeah, Carson Beck struggled a little bit against Alabama, but they dominated almost everyone else. Georgia, they'll have these hiccups, but they are very opportunistic to where even in the hiccup games, they find a way to just say, you know what, the past is the past. Let's dominate from this point on. So I don't know. I think Georgia is a team that's more built for these types of games than Texas is. I also think that Texas, they probably are going to be a little bit tired after that game against OU. And I don't see it going as well for Texas. Uh,
Real
Florida
quick,
State, they are 1-5.
real quick,
What
what did OU do to make Texas tired? Where's that coming from?
they gave them some hell offensively for a little bit. It was that first quarter. They made Texas start digging into the bag of tricks to figure out how to move against our defense. Granted, what because our defense was coming out there every 2 minutes because our offense was struggling, the defense got gassed pretty quickly, and that's when Texas began to pull away. But you get a defense out there but when you look at when the defense wasn't just exhausted, when they were still in the game, they were doing everything they could to keep us in it. And Texas, they found a way to capitalize when our defense got tired. They found out that our defense was tired, and you noticed they stopped taking shots down the field. They just started going for about 3 or 4 yards at a time because that's all they needed to do. They saw how tired our defense was. They saw the hands on hips, and they said, we'll wear them out. And so I think that's why the stats look a little bit worse than they really were, because the Oklahoma defense, it was their worst game of the season, but it wasn't
By
a bad
far.
game. It wasn't a terrible
Mhm.
game. You put that with last year's offense, we probably beat Texas by 3 or 4 scores, but our offense was just so bad. You can only play so well defensively when you're out there for so much. And so it's hard to win those.
That's
Uh
another one I think we're going to just have to agree to disagree. Those Texas boys, they weren't hardly breathing when they came off the sideline. That was as clean a group as I've seen in a long time, man.
Florida State, they're 1-5 on the regular season right now. And so we'll see if they can improve to 2-5 against a 5-1 Duke team led by former Texas quarterback Malik Murphy. Uh, we all know what happens when a top five team goes into play Purdue. And so I wish Oregon luck there. I don't think they are prepared for that. We'll see what happens. Purdue's pretty bad this year, but we'll see what happens. I tell you a team that's rebounding nicely right now, and that's Wisconsin. Uh, 2-1 in the Big Ten, 4-2 overall. But their last two games, let me do the math here real quick. Wisconsin has outscored their opponents
Who are those opponents?
94-13. Those opponents are 4-2 Rutgers. Rutgers has a really good offense this year. And then Purdue, who's terrible. But they also scored 21 against USC. They had a slow start, and I think they kind of hit rock bottom against Alabama. They've rebounded nicely. Their offense is really in a rhythm. Tawi Walker's having just a great season. So that game against Northwestern could be interesting. Miami versus Louisville. Miami's hit a slump lately. It's my personal opinion that they should be 4-2 right now, not 6-0, but neither here nor there. Uh, this is another really good weekend of college football. Oh, and get this, Notre Dame is only an 11.5 point favorite against Georgia Tech. So that could be interesting to watch with how inconsistent Notre Dame has been this year.
Yeah. Yeah, it could. I'll tell you, they've been good ever since Riley Leonard started throwing the ball to the end zone. Uh,
It was like what, 4 or 5 games before he finally threw a touchdown pass.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
let's
something
see
like
here.
that.
Let me look at the stats here. He has 6 touchdown passes on the season now. So good for him.
Yep. Good for him. Sooner Pocket Podcast. Make sure to check out www.soonerpocket.com. Lots of great pregame and postgame content on there, as well as recaps. And thanks for listening. Sam Knight here with Chris. Boomer Sooner. Let's hope for a win over the Gamecocks of South Carolina. Send South Carolina back to the cockpit. Boomer Sooner,
Boomer,
everyone.
Boomer Sooner.